The time is 4:30. I'm Margot Schaub, and I serve as a Library Commission Affairs Analyst. This meeting is being held in hybrid format, with the meeting occurring in person in the main library auditorium and available to view or listen to on WebEx. Public comment will be taken both in person and remotely by video or call-in for each item on the agenda. We will conduct public comment with attendees in the Correct first and then move to WebEx for public comment. Each comment is limited to 3 minutes unless otherwise noted. Members of the public can observe the meeting using the WebEx system by following the link in the library's event calendar or by calling local 1415-655-0001 and entering the access code, which is 24903635752. Attendees wishing to offer public comment virtually should raise their hand when public comment for that item is called. To make public comment when connected by phone, please raise your hand by dialing *3 to be added to the remote queue for the agenda item you intend to comment on. Individuals joining by WebEx should click the raise hand button in the lower right-hand portion of the participant panel to be added to the queue. Media service operations will facilitate this meeting and assist in moderating WebEx virtual public comment. Media services will call upon WebEx attendees by name or by caller number to prompt each attendee who wishes to provide public comment. If we experience any technical issues with WebEx, we will recess and try to address the issue. Please try logging back into WebEx if there are technical problems. Library commissioners in attendance are President Connie Wolf, Vice President Pete Long, Commissioners Mall, Lopez, and Bolander.
Thank you very much. Hello and welcome to the August 18th, 2022 meeting of the San Francisco Public Library Commission. To those of you here in Koret, we're delighted to see you, and we also are very pleased to welcome our virtual audience via the WebEx platform. We have a very exciting meeting ahead, so let's first start with reading our Ramaytush Ohlone land acknowledgement. The San Francisco Public Library Commission acknowledges that we occupy the unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone peoples, who are the original inhabitants of the San Francisco Peninsula. We recognize that the Ramaytush Ohlone understand the interconnectedness of all things and have maintained harmony with nature for millennia. We honor the Ramaytush Ohlone peoples for their enduring commitment to Mother Earth. As the indigenous protectors of this land and in accordance with their traditions, the Ramaytush Ohlone have never ceded, lost, nor forgotten their responsibilities as the caretakers of this place, as well as for all peoples who reside in their traditional territory. We recognize that we benefit from living and working on their traditional homeland. As uninvited guests, we affirm their sovereign rights as First Peoples and wish to pay our respects to the ancestors, elders, and relatives of the Ramaytush community. We recognize to respectfully honor Ramaytush peoples, we must embrace and collaborate meaningfully to record Indigenous knowledge and how we care for San Francisco and all its people. For those in attendance here or online, if you have not already done so, all of the materials are available for this meeting on the library's website, sfpl.org. Today we have a total of 5 agenda items, and we will begin with item number 1, which is general public comment. Operations, how many people have joined us via WebEx?
Madam President, at this time, we have 5 people in attendance.
Thank you. We are going to start with general public comment from members of the public present here in the Koret Auditorium, and then move to public comment from members of the public observing or listening through WebEx. General public comment is now open here in Koret.
Good afternoon, Library Commissioners. Peter Warfield here, Executive Director of Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California 94117-0544. I say these things because it is important in a public meeting that people can not only hear and listen, but also if the person identifies themselves, if they do, that they can know who is speaking, and if they're present in the room, certainly could approach the person and say, I don't like what you said, and so on and so forth, or I didn't like what you said, or I didn't agree with it, and so on. That's what can happen easily at a public meeting. That's not so easy when there are folks online. And in fact, I checked the YouTube recording of the last meeting, and there during public comment of myself and other members of the public, there was in great big letters, a completely wrong name, Michael Smith. So it looked like somebody who came in and saw me speaking, or somebody, the other member of the public comment or anybody else, Michael Smith, Michael Smith. Totally wrong and misleading. And particularly because you have systematically excluded my announcements about who I am and who I represent from your minutes systematically. I wanted to say again, as I did last time, that what's happening with Roe versus Wade, there are now prosecutions happening of people who were doing what used to be completely legal. And that means that the library's leading and selling and hustling and touting Facebook and other social media is really leading people into potential serious problems, including bullying and attacks and legal issues with information about what they are presenting there. The library should not be touting this for no reason at all on its monthly calendar and on its other kinds of publicity. That's just wrong. There's nothing wrong with mentioning it in connection with an information request, but that's wrong. And also the toxic elements of Facebook that we heard from Frances Haugen and the Wall Street Journal and others quoting her inside knowledge about what's going on. Another thing I wanted to say is there's a very poor consistency with respect to periodicals at the library and the availability of them because of allowing first newest copies to circulate versus not. That's very inconsistent and wrong. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment here in Correct Auditorium? Seeing there's no additional public comment in Correct, we now turn to general public comment through WebEx. Members of the public who wish to make general public comment on WebEx, please click the raise hand button in the lower right-hand portion of the screen. If you've called into WebEx dial-in number, please press *3 to line up to speak. Operations, if there are any commenters in the remote queue, please begin to put the commenters through.
Madam President, this time there are no commenters in the queue. I will pause briefly to allow commenters to join. Madam President, there are no more commenters in the queue.
Thank you. Hearing no further requests for comment, general public comment is now closed. And we move on to agenda item number 2, the discussion on library collection trends. I turn the meeting over to City Librarian Michael Lambert, and we look forward to this presentation.
Thank you, President Wolf, and good afternoon, Commissioners. Library staff appreciates this opportunity to present on one of our core service lines, our commitment to library collections, which is so central to furthering our mission to provide free and equal access to information, knowledge, independent learning, and the joys of reading for our diverse community. As you all have observed the past couple of years, the COVID-19 pandemic has accelerated the disruption in our industry as San Francisco Public Library has continued to deliver best-in-class access to robust digital and physical collections. Shelley Cocking is our Chief of Collections and Technical Services, and she's had a front row seat for the past few years, and overall, the better part of 3 decades during her SFPL career. And she'll be making this presentation about the most recent trend data. Shelley?
Thank you so much, Michael. I'm very happy to be back here, being able to talk to you once again about the trends in our physical collection, as well as our e-collections at this public library. My staff are looking really closely at trends in the industry to be able to provide patrons the collections they want when they arrive in our buildings once again, and be able to support their love of reading and learning. On this chart, you can see that the red bar is our e-resources budget, and that's grown significantly over the past decade. We're really lucky to be able to have that budget because we're able to support that new industry and new interest by our patrons without actually impacting the physical collection budget, which you can see in the blue bar. Additionally, we have a little green bar showing up there now, which is our giveaway funds. And that's to help support our goal of providing some of our neediest patrons out there in our community with starter libraries to grow their love of literature and make them regular library users in the long run. Here you can see our 10-year circulation trend. You can see how much the orange part of it, which is the e-circulation, has grown over the decade. Part of that is because in the early days, most of the big publishers didn't actually give libraries ebook copies of their books. That's changed over time. However, as recently in 2019, we still had a 90-day embargo before we could get books from some of the bigger publishers in the library in ebook form. One of the benefits of COVID is that's all been done away with, so that's a good thing from COVID. And so we now have immediate access to all ebooks immediately. And we've also added platforms over that time period too that allow us access to digital copies of music, films, magazines, and comic books, which is added to the circulation. My staff is trying to figure out where we're going in the future now, and so they're taking circulation from 2019, which is the last calendar year we were fully open, and comparing it to the year 2022. And here's a big picture look at it from format view, and you can see we're still down, and we're still recovering with the book circulation, but we've more than made up with that in ebooks and e-audiobooks. Videos have gone down in circulation, and we made a little bit of that back in e-video. But music and magazines are down in both formats. So let's take a deeper dive so we can understand that. First, youth fiction circulation is back compared to 2019, and actually, in some cases, are way back, way higher. Let's see my stats. Board books are actually up 46% compared to 2019, and graphic novels are up 27%. So kids are back and reading full steam in print format. Adult fiction is still a little bit slow compared to 2019, and what I've heard from my staff and the branch staff is that it's really those books that people would have found while being in the building and browsing, new authors, lesser known authors. But those hot titles and the things in Lucky Day are circulating the same as they would have compared to 2019. So we hope to see that come back as our members of our communities are more comfortable hanging out for longer periods in our branches. Nonfiction is still really slow, but that's mainly because the publishing industry is really slow there. It's still really hard to get enough books printed and into the United States because of the impacts of COVID. And so when the publisher chooses to not print something, it's usually in the nonfiction area. We are seeing recovery though. Travel books are finally back. Rick Steves back in Europe traveling, putting out new versions of his travel guides that haven't been out for 2 years. And when they do make it to our collection, that circulation is there. DVD circulation is down overall, but the average DVD actually still circulates really well. It's just that the studios didn't produce as much during COVID. And some of the streaming platforms that now make their own films are not actually making DVDs for us to purchase. And Apple's an example of that. So we won't be having Ted Lasso's TV show in our collection. Music CD circulation is way down, which I'm not surprised because the streaming platforms that are free on the internet are taking away that need to go to the library. But I've been really surprised at the 33% increase in vinyl circulation. So we're going to actually add that to more branches. It's coming back. We've even heard that cassette tapes are back.
What?
Yeah, I know. I don't want to go there yet, but we'll think about that. Magazine publishing is actually where the biggest hit was taken. Most libraries canceled their subscriptions for the first year after COVID. And so those publishers really took a big financial hit. and they're not back yet. Big name titles that you expect to see in a library like Parents Magazine and Entertainment Weekly are now no longer being published. One of the things that I really like to do is include the top titles so you guys can have a little fun looking at what our patrons are reading. This is also a really good example of how our programming can impact what our community reads. If you look at the top 5 adult nonfiction, the 4 out of 5 of those titles are actually things that were either on the same page titles or total SF titles. So adult nonfiction. So that's really, you can see that by adding programming to go along with the title, we're really getting people to read. For the fiscal year 22, our focus was really on recovery. We're buying materials to help people find jobs and get back into their own recovery. We were also trying to buy materials in languages other than Englishes, because for a good year, we weren't able to bring them into the United States. We launched our Chinese Lucky Day collection. And we also launched the Scholar at Home program, which I'll talk about more later in the presentation. For fiscal year 23, we're trying to see what we want to do for the future for collections, and that's what our focus is. We're thinking about launching Spanish and Russian Lucky Day collections, and our concern there is mostly, can we get those books in a timely fashion to make them still feel lucky? Because we're still having some challenges in those areas. We're working with the Jails program to be able to provide them with an e-collection that they'll be available on the tablets. They'll start providing to those communities really soon this fall, and we're excited to be part of that. As I mentioned, we're going to add Mission Bay and Western Addition vinyl collections, and maybe more if those go well. And we're also going to launch our first book kiosk this fall, so we're excited to learn about that new piece of equipment that should be coming in September and get it out into our community. Ebooks trends, mainly we're looking at diversity, economic recovery, and digital access. So North Star Digital is actually a digital literacy product that the state is providing to us for free. And the staff at the Bridge are working with that right now to pilot using that to help train our public on how to better use technology. Gail's Business Suite allows patrons to actually build a business plan right there in the software and gives them full access to all their data they need, including demographic information really soon about that neighborhood they want to open it in. Legal information reference, I'm really excited about because for the first time, we'll have access to ebook versions of the Nolo Press books, their current edition, which has never been available to the library market before. My staff's always really concerned about whether or not we're successfully providing access to these digital and physical collections that we purchase. We always make sure that all of the digital collections are available on the computers in the library, so if patrons don't have technology at home, they can come in and use them here at the library. On the left, you can see a map that RSA has provided us of all the e-circulation. And on the right, you can see in the orange dots is the print circulation for so far this calendar year. And as you can see, both of the collections are well covered throughout the city. E-books purchasing is really different compared to the physical book. And on the left-hand side, you can see the platforms that we can purchase access to the books in the same way you would a physical book. So one person can have it checked out at a time, and it still requires holds queues, unfortunately. But that way we get access to all the newest and hottest titles. On the right-hand side, you see the platforms that provide access to their full catalogs. And on those, it's not all the hottest titles, but it's their entire catalog from the different publishers. And that really provides us with a huge collection that we could never fit into our physical buildings. For ebooks alone, we have almost 700,000 books that we have in this way. So that gives us the real long tail version of a collection. And so things that they would have once had to maybe put in an ILL request and wait a couple of weeks to get the book, they can now check it out immediately. We're going to be using the new racial equity lens in CTS to look at our different services that we provide our patrons. And one of the things we're going to be doing is launching our collection audit. And that's going to be a multi-year project, and this year we're focusing on Native American and African American communities. So we've set aside a little bit of extra money. We're going to check and make sure we have enough copies, or even maybe have all the titles we should have in our collection, and purchase those that we need additional copies of. We have a new tool that helps us to easily track how we're doing for equity titles in our collection, and we're going to be training the staff on how to use that this fall. And as I mentioned, we have that new giveaway budget, which has been really exciting. We can continue expanding on that success that we had during the Summer Together project, where we gave out 10 books to every SFUSD student. And we have a number of projects that we've worked with. We spent a lot of time working closely with CPP on this project and developing new partnerships with many community agencies out there. The picture you see here on this slide is one of our oldest ones that started right at the beginning of COVID. This is the free little library in the Tenderloin. And they've been coming to our loading dock and picking up new books to offer to the people in the neighborhood since I think April of 2020. And it's really nice to see that people be able to get books right there near their homes in the Tenderloin. And each book they pull off that shelf also has a sticker on it, so they know the book came from the library and that they can come down and get even more books from us. The biggest new project we have with the giveaways is the Scholar at Home project. And this one is my staff's busy packing up 10 books into a little suitcase for kids. This year we're focusing on creating packets for 0 to 3. And we work with CPP to be able to connect with the nonprofit agencies that work directly with the families that are the neediest people in our community. And we ship out some of these boxes out directly to them. And that you can see from the quotes and the pictures that the people have really been enjoying getting them. We're giving them additional material inside the suitcases that help the families work on early literacy skills, and those come in English, Spanish, and Chinese. So I know that was really fast, and I thank you for your time. And I'm happy to go over anything you guys might have questions on. Thanks.
Thank you, Shelley. She packed a lot in there, and I just want to acknowledge Shelley for her leadership. She and her team do a marvelous job being good stewards of our robust collections budget, which is one of the largest per capita in the country for our peer urban libraries. And one of the things that Shelley mentioned that I just want to highlight is that we are subject to the marketplace. And increasingly, content is no longer available in the physical format. We are subject to, the big 5 publishing houses, and increasingly Amazon, which has its own publishing unit. Some content is exclusively released through Audible, which is Amazon's audiobooks unit. And, libraries are working with our elected officials and just trying to make sure that everything is fair. But Shelley's doing a remarkable job. And one other quick anecdote, last week we had a family fun day out on Fulton Street, and we're trying really hard to invite our patrons back to our flagship main library and engage the residents of the Tenderloin. It was a smash hit. Our youth services team was out there. Those little suitcases full of books, they were delighting the youth and families, and very diverse constituents in the Tenderloin. They were flying off the tables like hotcakes, and people were thanking us profusely. There was one mother there with her daughter, and she just talked about how the library saved her life growing up and how much she appreciates what we're doing for the city and the neighborhood. So thank you, Shelley.
Thank you very much, City Librarian Lambert, and thank you very much, Shelley. I know there will be comments from all of us up here because this was such a rich and thoughtful presentation, but we're going to now move on to public comment before we have our commission discussion. So we will begin with public comment here in Correct before moving to our WebEx viewers and listeners. So public comment is now open here in Koret Auditorium.
Peter Warfield, Executive Director, Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com. And for those who care about privacy and who don't have easy access to computers, P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California, 94117-0544. I say this because it's important for people to know, and they would know how to approach, certainly if all the folks were here in the room. I'm not Michael Smith, which the library incorrectly labeled on its last month's Library Commission recording on YouTube, and which it leaves out contact information and so on routinely on its minutes. Thank you very much for the presentation. I'm sorry to say that there's a lot that was actually said that wasn't mentioned in the printed version, and that is we've got a pandemic, and we have libraries that are not either fully open at all in the comparison periods or open for fewer hours, especially fewer hours in the times that the patrons have said over and over again in the library's own surveys, the library hours they want the most, which the library has systematically cut. Evenings have been cut. In addition, the library more and more in its apparent new role or its self-assigned role as touter of the wonderfulness of computers and electronics has simply cut some of the printed versions of both reference and circulation. As I've mentioned before, the library, in many cases, has multiple electronic copies and more available than the book version. And in some cases, and actually more and more cases, it's very disturbing that unlike what the presenter said, they are cutting books from, apparently from acquisition. Now, there may be particular reasons that the city librarian has mentioned, but whatever the reason, it's disturbing to see only electronic versions of important books, recent books, and so on that I would like to read and that I see on my peregrinations. I think there's a strong book demand. You can see the book circulation well over doubling from 2021 to 2022. Why do we talk about that? People are really attached to books, even people who use electronics routinely or professionally, while the ebook version, the e-materials have barely increased a tiny amount in the last 2 years. Why don't we talk about that? If you give it to them, they will come. If you cut it away from them, they can't come to books. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comment here in Koret Auditorium? We will begin on seeing there's no further public comment here in Koret. We turn to public comment through WebEx. Operations, if there are any commenters in the remote queue, please begin to put the commenters through.
Madam President, there are no commenters in the queue at this time. I will pause briefly to allow additional commenters to join the queue. Madam President, there are no additional commenters in the queue.
Thank you very much, Operations. Hearing no further requests for comment, public comment is now closed. And we now move to the commission discussion on item number 2. I just want to say, Shelley, that was a fantastic report, so full of rich and interesting and important information, understanding why these numbers are shifting and understanding the trends. And we really appreciate you and your staff's attention to detail and understanding where these trends go to make sure that our constituencies have what they need. So I turn to Commissioner Mall. Would you like to make a comment or ask questions?
Yeah, both. Thank you, Shelley. I think the amount of detail that you can get from the circulation is just incredible. This chart of the city and what are the ebooks and what are the print books. It's just remarkable. So clearly you have your you have your hands or eyes or mind wrapped around all the details. I had a few questions because you went sort of fast, which I appreciate. But I'm just, okay, you talked about the Noel Press books having circulation. What's that?
Nolo Press is a California-based legal publisher. It's kind of your go-to resource for anything. If you want to get a divorce, you want to do your taxes for the state, you know, all things if you were a renter, landlord. And they've always only provided like the old version of it to libraries, which are kind of useless. So this is the first time we've been able to get the ebook edition that's current and through this resource. So I was really excited. I've been trying for 10 years. So.
So it's sort of like Google for California for books.
Well, it's publishing. So it's a legal publisher. So if you were a renter and you wanted to know if your landlord could do something, you can get the book. Or if you're a landlord and you want to know what all the rules are.
Right.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, that was one question. Another question was, you mentioned that the adult nonfiction publishing has slowed down, and that if the publishers aren't going to print something, they'll not choose them. Okay, could you elaborate a little more on that?
Yeah, it's so, you know, when you hear about that lockdown in China because of COVID, that's where most books are printed. So if they're all stuck in their apartments, they're not producing paperback or paper books, physical books. So that's, you know, it's publishers then have to kind of scramble. There's only one printer still left in the US that can there's one that's filed for bankruptcy, but there's one that can produce at a full level. So it's like, well, if I have to shift it to the US, what am I going to kick out of the US and delay? So we've seen a lot of publication dates go sometimes 6-8 months out. Yeah.
Is that a global phenomenon?
Yeah.
It's not just.
Yeah.
You know,
If you can't get your new dishwasher, you can't get a chip for
Right.
your car,
Yeah,
you
no,
can't
I
get
know
your
that.
paper book.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, wait, I have a few more. I feel like this is the January 6th committee. The families that came to the Tenderloin Family Day, that just warms my heart so much. Does that come out of the library budget, or is that, do you have extra funding for that?
It does come out of the library's budget. You may recall Shelley had this wonderful slide, which I'll back up.
But I
and
zipped
she had
through at the
a
beginning.
green
It's okay.
little sliver. It's a growing trend for us to give away books and seed personal home libraries. The weekend before that, we had the Junior Giants Festival. And we had a couple of our commissioners go down there, and they gave away 3,000 books to all the young people that were in the neighborhood. And it just really delights families and young people to get a brand new book that they get to keep and enjoy. And it just really begins that wonderment and that joy of reading.
Well, I love the idea of the suitcase,
Yeah.
which can be replenished and all that. But are you only doing it for that neighborhood, for the Tenderloin, or how are you distributing them?
No, so that was just an event here at the Main. We're actually working with nonprofit agencies throughout the city, and actually Michelle's team is the one who makes the connections because they're about partnerships, and then they connect them with my staff who actually have packed up the books and put them on flatbeds, and then delivery services drives them out to them. Except for one agency came in their own pickup truck and took 4 pallets, 1 pallet at a time. It was kind of crazy. I was sure it was going to fly away when they drove off, but they took out 4 pallets, 1 at a time, and brought them around to different departments that they support. Yeah.
And to be clear, we're giving away free books right now at every neighborhood library. So kindergarten through 12th grade, preschoolers, we have children's books available for youth to pick up.
As part of Summer Stride, and we also delivered them directly to the grade schools at SFUSD this year. That was, so we didn't have to handle them. So we managed to pull that off this year, where they went right into the schools and got into the kids' hands in their buildings.
Okay, well, I'm going to say this. I generally think that the library staff and Michelle and her staff and you and your staff do a great job, but I think you are really remiss not advertising this. I mean, the city does not know this. And the fact that the library is serving this purpose or providing these materials is really something. I don't know if other cities do it, but I think it's remarkable. And I'd like to see some
something in the paper about that.
Thank you for the feedback.
Yeah.
We are certainly trendsetters in this area.
And can there be a little more public recognition?
Absolutely. I think we have all the principals in the room, so
Okay, my last question is, what's CPP?
Oh, I'm sorry, Community Partners and Programs and Partnerships. Sorry, thank you. I know I'm really bad with the acronyms. That's a library career profession shortcoming. We use acronyms all the time. My apologies.
Okay, so. the
Michelle's team.
Okay, so, Michelle, that's your title, CPP? Okay, and so you work with the nonprofits to get, okay. Please put that out for other people to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Mall. Appreciate all those questions and observations, and I agree. You are all doing incredible things that the world should know about, and your kind of humble approach is really admirable, but it'd be great if more people knew. So, Vice President Huang?
Thank you. Is this on? Okay,
Yeah.
great. Shelley, thank you so much for the in-depth report, and thank you, the RSA team, for the support. I know data polls can be a little bit tough, and all the behind-the-scenes work to actually get the report, so I appreciate it. I have 4 sort of subtopics I want to start with, which is the first one is just to set the facts straight on physical and digital media. The trend is very clear in the data. Can we flip to this slide very quickly? In the 10-year period, first of all, I think the comparison between 2021 and 2022 is entirely unfair for all categories, right? It's just sort of like a bad comparison. Let's just put this out here, right? The overall expressed demand for collections has roughly been the same from 2013 to 2022, right? That total number is basically the same. The percentage for e-circulation in 2013 was 5%, and today it is nearly 50%. It has grown 10x, right? I think it is so unimaginably clear to me what the trend is here. We cannot sort of continue to paper over this. So that's just the first topic. I just wanted to set the facts right here. Shelley, I think my first question to you is comparing this slide right here with the previous one, which is the collections budget trend. If we were to freeze here just for a second, if we add up FY13's collection budget, so that's round up to 8 million for physical and then roughly 2 million for electronic. So 10 million in FY13. And then if you look at FY23, physical plus electronic is above 10 million for both. And so over the last 10 years, 11 years, we've seen the collections budget double. And that's basically our ability to supply the collections. Going back to the next slide here, in terms of the express demand for the collections, it's roughly stayed the same in the last 10 years. And I'm curious how you would characterize the underlying factors. How do we tie those two together, right? How are we tying the fact that our collections budget is now 2x, whereas demand itself has roughly stayed the same in terms of how we count collections? I can think of 4 reasons, and I'm curious what it's probably a mix of all these, but I'm curious how you would talk about it. It could be 1, that just things are costing more in general. It could be 2, that we are providing the same material across multiple platforms now, which is another piece of this. It could be that the turnover within our materials, within particularly physical for sure, but then depending on how we license material and electronic, the turnover rate could be higher. How do you what is the exact mix here of why it's just costing so much more for the same demand, unless that's not the right way to sort of frame this question?
Well, so physical collections, yes, have gone up in cost, but we also we do a better job, I think, at keeping them refreshed, like the board books. those are really short term. So no matter if you buy it, you're going to buy it again in 6 months because someone's chewed it. So there's even though it may not be going out more, we're better able to keep things really fresh looking for especially the youth. And as a former children's librarian, that's my goal, is to have nice looking collections that you don't mind. I think part of why the board books went up is because we bought all brand new board books because of RFID. We just wanted to get them tagged that way. And, if you see nice, clean ones, you're more likely to check it out for your kid and not one that looks a little worn. So having a good, healthy physical budget really helps with that. And we want to do that for adults, of course. We started the Lucky Day collection, so that's new. So those are copies that can't have holds placed on them. And we still do the 3-to-1 holds to holding ratio for physical collections. But we also will offer a Lucky Day now, so that's an increased cost for the physical side. When it comes to ebooks, the pricing is kind of crazy compared to physical. What might be a $26 book could cost us $95 for an ebook. And then if it's super popular and there's hundreds of holds, we have to do 3-to-1 on that as well. And that's really expensive. That's why Hoopla is nice. And I'm trying to remember the Black Panther book that we did for One City, One Book. Do you remember the title? No. So nobody. Yes, thank you. That one was available on Hoopla. Black
Against Empire.
Empire. Yeah. We did that a few years, maybe 4 years ago now, as the One City, One Book. And it was about the Black Panther organization in the East Bay. And that was available immediately on Hoopla, only costs us on average about $1.70 at checkout.
Wow.
Everybody could have access immediately. So that's great, but it's also like controlling that cost. When SFUSD during COVID shutdown decided Hoopla was their school library and didn't tell us, I had $200,000 all of a sudden I had to spend on it. So there's, good things about one process and bad things about others. So it's kind of a give. So.
And I'll jump in on this question a little bit, and Shelley, you can help me out and correct me if I'm wrong, but over this 10-year horizon that you see, we've become much more customer focused.
Yeah.
So even though our physical circulation has been declining at a steady clip, 3 to 5% a year, as reflected in this data, our collections budget for physical, we've continued to invest in our physical collection because we still want to meet demand and deliver the very best for San Francisco residents. So what this chart reflects is our ability to respond when there's a bestseller. We're able to buy multiple copies, or if a book comes out and suddenly it takes off and it's super hot, Shelley has the resources to go back and order many, many more copies so that people are not languishing and waiting as long as they do in other municipalities. I think another aspect to this is that we're showing digital circulation, but our collections budget also pays for a lot of e-learning platforms, online databases. So all of those online resources aren't necessarily reflected in circulation. And we can, show that utilization in future presentations if you all are interested.
Yeah, so things like Value Line, which we used to get everywhere in paper, is now available online, and we only have it in paper in a couple locations. So it's shifted over and become something more digital, and that's not in the e-circulation. So
Cool, thank you. I bring this question only because when potentially, if there are some other folks who don't understand kind of how the library works, like I think you can put these two charts next to each other and then it's very easy to draw sort of like the wrong conclusion. And so I think that if there were to be recommendations on presenting this in other venues, it would be one, starting with the principles that we apply in the collections practice, just hearing like how you think about the strategic priorities for forming collections, the fact that we're investing more in providing a better experience for our patrons, the fact that we're shooting to increase the quality of our physical collections, at least like optically, in the material there. Like these sorts of things are probably just good to write down and share. And then two, there might just be some like, I don't know, some written notes on some of these slides, more tactical slideware stuff. I'm not sure, but I just don't want to have, someone look at these materials separately and then be like, okay, why are we, like I think it's a very direct question. And so I think like being able to stave that off is probably helpful in the future.
Yeah.
So that's my first question. Sorry, this is going a little long. I'll skip the second one. Actually, I think the only note that I would that would be helpful, maybe this is an RSA requesting on this slide, having percentages. I think the raw numbers are great, but some percentage of the base would be helpful in terms of the actual magnitude of change here.
There was
video is huge, but I'm not sure like where we started from in 2019.
Yeah, so that's what we talked about that a lot in my office, and we opted to go with the raw numbers because the percentages didn't really say as much, I think. So we wanted to see, like these are how many physical things didn't go out in a branch.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's why we opted for that. And then they wanted me to put both, and I couldn't make that look pretty. So that's where we landed, was you should have both.
Yeah, totally fair.
Yeah.
And then just the last point or question is, have we looked at, so skipping ahead to the page number, it's 10 on my deck here, look at the two maps. Oh.
About 15.
Yeah. Here, have we ever looked at like the difference between these two? Like if we took the e-circulation map and subtracted the physical circulation map, like I think like given now looking back at the FY22 number where we're seeing roughly 50-50 demand between physical and electronic, it would be interesting, and this is just sort of like a passing curiosity that I'll leave you to sort of play around with, is where there are specific nuances between like neighborhood by neighborhood or precinct by precinct preferences between physical and electronic. And just doing the diff might be an interesting view. But again, I don't think that the takeaway is any different on the insight here. It's just something that might be fun to look at some point.
So that is in the map. So the orange dots are people who just check out physical materials, or just checked out physical materials for this part of 2022. And the blue and green, I can't remember which ones are which. One is people who just checked out ebooks or e-materials, and one is people who use both physical and e. Right, so I didn't put that on there because it's really, they used e-circulation for me in this description. But so we can actually see people who want to just use our e-collections, who just want to use our physical collections, and then people who use both.
Gotcha, interesting.
So, and then you can really zoom in and we can zoom out and see the Bay Area. The biggest loss in circulation is all those telecommuters who aren't coming into the city anymore over in the East Bay and up in Marin. I mean, that's where we've seen a lot of our physical circulation loss.
Gotcha.
Because they're not coming into our buildings.
Okay.
I'm guessing their local libraries have gone up in circulation.
Cool, thank you.
Great, thank you, Commissioner Wong. It was really thoughtful and very helpful information for future presentations. Shelley, I hope you understand that this is such interesting material that we really have all these great observations and questions. So take it as a line of support.
It's all out of love.
It's all out of and it's just fascinating to have this kind of data, because this is kind of the heart of what libraries are about, are these materials. So please take this as a sign of love and support. Commissioner Bolander.
Round two. Feels really bad between two data keys.
Love it.
So on this slide 15, the one on the left, the different colors mean e-circulation or P subtracted. So you can sort of see a density of who does what.
Yeah.
Okay. And you mentioned that the drop off, would you say the major drop off is that people are just not coming in to the city to get
that? Yeah, for our physical circulation. If you zoomed out, I also did a different presentation, which you may have attended. for the Northern California Technical
Yes,
Services? Yeah.
Yes, yes. I did.
And then I had the bigger
was
map,
excellent,
which was the Bay Area, and you could see the really, for those areas where we lost, it's all around in Marin, in the East Bay, and
Yeah.
some on the peninsula.
Right.
So it's the people who aren't coming into the city anymore.
Right, and do we have any numbers on that generally? I mean, you can just tell by looking downtown, but I think in terms of getting people in the building, obviously, if there's not people here in the city, they're not going to come for whatever reason. I mean, you just don't have the density. So if we do have any, because that's a good number to think about. And then on the 10-year circulation trend, do you have any data on how it is for like the rest of the country? Is it roughly looking the same? Are we seeing the same trends, or is it just here, or is it because we're high tech, or is there any, can you give me some insights into that?
Well, I mean, what I have is I'm part of this listserv for the Urban Library Council, and we all talk about collections on the listserv. And mostly, we have a much healthier budget, so our physical circulation and e-circulation have stayed up well. Many other libraries can't afford to do the 3-to-1 hold-still holding ratio that we do. We're really lucky with that. Many do 5, and some do for ebooks, they do 10-to-1. So you're going to wait a really long time for your ebooks.
Right.
So obviously their e-circulation isn't growing anywhere near what we are, because they can't afford to do that. And when you're paying $90 for a copy.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I was going to ask. So it would appear, correct me if I'm wrong, that it's 3x ebook to print book, or did I get that wrong?
No, so what we do, regardless of format,
Mhm.
is for every 3 holds, we buy 1 copy of the book.
Right.
So if there's a 99 holds on an ebook, we make sure we have 33 copies of it. And if there's 99 holds on a physical copy,
Right.
we make sure.
But that ebook, physically looks silly, right? That ebook you said cost $90, whereas
Yeah.
a physical book would
Well,
cost how much?
So I'm
roughly?
kind of simplifying that.
Yeah,
So it
well-
really depends on the publisher.
Right, but averages.
So HarperCollins basically charges the same amount for an ebook as they do for a physical book, but you only get 26 checkouts. Random House charges the $90, but it's yours for life.
Okay.
Macmillan gives us 1 year and only charges us $12, but it disappears after a year. We have
So
to
then
buy
you
it
gotta
again.
redo it again.
It's really, there's no easy answer when it comes to ebooks. Let me just put it that way. And then once it lands on Hoopla, we're going to pay about on average $1.70 to $2
Right.
per checkout.
So really it's, So the real cost of ebooks, one, it's more variable than physical books.
Right.
And 2, it seems like just more expensive, which seems silly, I know, but it seems more expensive on
Yeah.
general. So that's probably why it's 2. Okay, I got it. I just like orders of magnitude. I
Yeah.
need to know like
Yeah.
percent, like, oh
Yeah.
gosh, okay.
Yeah. But holds do tend to grow more on the physical because we pre-order it 2 months prior to
Right.
street date,
Right,
and it's
right.
added in our catalog, so people know we're getting the physical copies.
Right.
And then the ebook mark record doesn't show until usually the day of street date or the day
Right.
after. And
But
then
you can
people-
also, from a demand point of view, you could buy 10 more ebooks like that and you don't have to wait.
Right, and then it immediately goes out.
Yeah, right, okay. So,
Yeah.
okay.
We buy 1, and then we do the still holding queue. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Impressive. Keeping track of all this is like a whole Rubik's Cube of trying to figure this out. So.
Well, and that's why you have to limit what I can squeeze into 15 minutes.
Exactly. And clearly, it's a lot more than 15 minutes of conversation. But I suspect, like the rest of us, Commissioner Lopez would like to say something.
It's not going to be as technical. But yeah, I'm curious more about the kits. So my understanding is that there are 10 books in those boxes that are really nice. My question, I have several questions, but I'm just going to limit it to 2. One is, who chooses the content that goes into those kits? Like, how do you select the books? And are the books that are chosen the same for like age appropriate levels and they're all the same, or they're mixed groups? And the reason that I'm asking that is just like, in a family, if you have multiple kids, multiple reading levels, can they benefit? How do they benefit? And then this is just out of curiosity because I'm an educator. Is there any post evaluation or post kind of like assessment as to like how the kids utilize or how they whether or not they read the books or if they can exchange it? And I know that that will take a lot of research, maybe a dissertation, which I'm not going to ask you to do. But I was just curious about that aspect. I think it's a great idea. I think it, what it does to the kid, the fact, like Michael was saying, starting their own library and starting the passion for reading. So I would that by itself is great. And it's, it's like, I wish I had so many books when I was a kid, but I was just curious about that aspect.
Yeah, so to start with, I have specialists. I have 2 children's library and collection specialists in my division. And conveniently, I myself once had one of those jobs and have ordered children's books for more than 10 years. And my head of collections and cataloging now was also in one of those positions and did it for, I think, 6 or 7 years. And then was a children's librarian at Richmond branch and Bayview branch in the main children's center. So we have, a lot of people with a lot of experience who know the collection really well. And a lot of what drives it is when you're trying to make, I'm trying to remember, it was $400,000 for the books we bought. It's a lot of money and you need to get a lot of copies. So part of it is just what books are produced in that quantity that we can get a hold of. We want to do at least 500 copies of it. And we're also looking at ones that are going to meet the needs for the communities we're aiming at. And so we wanted to make sure we got ones for the, Spanish speakers and ones for the Chinese speakers, and also just diverse books overall. So we're thinking about that. And then trying to work with our different vendors to get them in stock. So we started, it's a lot of work. And we're just focusing on 0 to 3 right now. And so we're making those packs. And then we're storing them, and then we're going to go from, the preschool pre-K group next, and we'll be doing that. And then they'll be able to give out both. And so we're going to do a rolling every year, add a new age group, and keep filling the back end for those collections. Mostly in terms of, are people happy with it? We go by feedback from people. We haven't actually done a study to see, are they using it? Would they prefer different stuff? We do hear back, like for the school, last year, I'm trying to remember, there's so many giveaways now. The original one with the SFUSD that we did, the big 10-book giveaway, we picked stuff off their summer reading books list that they created. And what we heard back is the kids want more fun stuff during the summer. So this year we focused on fun things. So we do hear back from, for the older kids, we can hear from the school librarians and the teachers on how to make those changes. So that's one area we get feedback from.
And I'll jump in here as well. We're so fortunate to have a research strategy and analytics unit, internal consultancy, and they have been helping us to develop outcome measures and effectively the pre-test, post-test kind of survey model, what has changed as a result of our patrons' engagement with different programs or services. So one thing that we're striving to do with SFUSD, we have a long-standing partnership, and years ago, we really had a game changer with President Obama's Library Card Challenge. And we now are able to get SFUSD's student directory every year, and we upload that into our patron database so that every San Francisco Unified School District student has a library card. It's our Scholar Card initiative. So what we're striving to do to take that next level is continue to make our partnership with SFUSD more sophisticated and be able to track different cohorts of students that maybe participate in our summer stride summer learning program, for example, and gain an understanding of their participation, but as a result of that participation, their readiness when they return to school in the fall, or their academic achievement, has it improved at all? And those discussions are ongoing. It's very complicated to get the data, understand the data, and make it reliable, but it is something that we're continuing to strive to do, and those conversations are ongoing.
Thank you, Commissioner Lopez. I think you already have a PhD, but if you want to get another one, I think we know what you should go back to school for. Yes, Commissioner Mall.
You said that there's obviously fewer commuters coming from Marin and the East Bay. Are non-San Francisco residents allowed to get a San Francisco library card?
Yeah, it's required to get funding through the state that all members of, all residents of California can get a library card if they come into one of our buildings.
Really?
Yeah. Now, obviously, people from San Diego aren't getting a lot of our library cards because they have to get up here. But the Bay Area, historically, we've had a lot of people, you know, I'm one of them. I live in the East Bay and I use San Francisco library, you know, so just only, I don't ever use my local library because I'm here. I can come and pick up my holds, which actually I have one upstairs I got to remember to get. So, yeah.
Huh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
The state of California is unique in that regard. I mean, if you move to another state, you usually can get a library card in your local municipality.
Yeah.
But if you go across a county line, you typically have to pay a non-resident fee, whatever the equivalent that county resident pays in property taxes for their library system.
How long has that been in the state?
Since I came here in 1993, so probably before then, but it's been around.
Oh yeah, it's decades.
Yeah.
Okay, that's another well-kept secret.
So I just want to, on behalf of the commission, Shelley, your leadership and dedication is really extraordinary. And we hope you will take back to your full team this kind of incredible, robust conversation. I just want to thank my fellow commissioners for their incredible insights and thoughtfulness. It really was a fantastic presentation. And I think in the future, we'd like to hear more. I think that there were other elements, and I think we did have that 2-year period in which it's hard to do comparisons. I think it would be wonderful to hear more about some of the ways in which e-use is the other elements of the non-circulating things that are being used and that kind of those trends. And I also thought the question about how do we connect to or how do we relate to other parts of the country, what our trends are doing, and understanding like what are the trends both locally as well as nationally. So I think some of that would be really useful to have and to kind of continue this. But it's clear this is very complicated business. And I really thank Commissioner Huang for that analysis of the use and the budgets, and just hearing you talk about, like, I think 4 different e-publishers and those costs. I mean, that was just mind-blowing how you actually keep track of all that. And so I just want to say thank you. It was really fantastic. I know Commissioner Lopez was there at the Giants giveaway, and I was there as well. And there is something so remarkable about seeing kids look at a table of books and you say, yes, you can take one for free. And they look at you and they can't believe it. Their parents can't believe it. Yeah. So I love that this trend has started, and I hope that that will grow over time as well. Because the other data you gave us is that while adult use of physical books is down, children's use has increased dramatically. And that is such great news. Yeah. So thank you so much for your contributions and your presentation, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
President Wolf, before we conclude this item, I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge our CFO, Marines team. Historically, the complexity with contracting for all of these licensing agreements. Shelley has a team, but it takes a village.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you recognize the complexity today.
Yeah, and so thank you to everyone in the, I mean, obviously it takes a village to make this work because it is not so simple. It's not like, going online and saying, I'll take, your Amazon cart, 3 of these and 2 of these, and you're done. And really want to thank the analytic team for providing you the support. That's really, really critical. That's one of the things that's really fantastic about this presentation. So thank you again. So we will now move on to agenda item number 3, which is promises to be equally exciting and wonderful, the city librarian's report. So I turn it over to City Librarian Michael Lambert.
Thank you, President Wolf. And that is an excellent segue to our first item on the city librarian's report. We have an FY 23-24 budget update from our CFO, Mike Fernandez. Mike, take it away.
All right, thank you, Michael. Good evening, Commissioners. President Wolf. Went too far. Okay, happy to be here to provide an update now that the season has closed, sort of. So you know where we landed. The changes I'll talk about here today were all at the direction of city leadership, and I'm pleased to report I have good news for us all. As you know, this is my first budget cycle here at the library, and it was just very apparent through this whole process how appreciated the library is, how valued we are, and our core services, and also as a partner for cities' greater priorities. I would like to thank you, commissioners, staff, and the leadership of the library. For your role in making this institution what it is. It made it very easy for me to stand in front of the board and talk about our financial plan for the next 2 fiscal years. So with that, we'll go ahead. All right. Budget overview. I'm here on slide 2. Since we last updated you in February, the numbers have changed a little bit. So we'll talk about these. We brought you a budget in February of $179 million for FY23 and $185 million for FY24. And since then, we have increased our budget to $185 for 23 and $186.9 million for FY24. A few of the highlights of the budget would be about $1.1 million in investments to improve inclusivity, another close to $1 million to improve digital access. An overall theme to our budget was to take an approach to financially empower our patrons, providing debt relief to those who need it when we can, as well as meeting people where they are to improve financial skills needed for the world emerging from this pandemic. So just to review kind of where we are, since we've met here last, we've crossed all the major milestones. We're down here at the yellow portion at the bottom there. After submitting our budget, after submitting our budget, we were due to submit our budget February 21st. We entered the mayor's phase. This cycle was a little bit different this year for the library. Typically, we're a June department. This year, we're a May 1 submittal. We first appeared before the Budget and Appropriations Committee and in front of the Board of Supervisors in May, which, like I said, is a month earlier, where we were approved with only very minor changes. The city budget was ultimately approved July 26th, the mayor signing it the next day on the 27th. That means that what we have to bring you before you this evening is the actual fully adopted budget for the coming fiscal years of 23 and 24. So our budget sources, although our bottom line has gone up, the distribution of our funding sources remains fairly similar, although even more dependent now on the Library Preservation Fund, which is, of course, our set-aside. Plus a few million of fund balance to deliver service enhancements proposed for this year, fiscal 23. In fact, if you take our library preservation fund and our fund balance together, that's roughly 99% of our total budget for this year. As far as our uses, you can see that our uses match our sources. That's the balancing process. We're required to do it every single year. We can only spend what we budget. On the uses side of the equation, you can see where we invested in collections, technical services, as well as IT. We are not immune to inflationary pressures, and we had to make some additional investments there just to keep our commitments. Our funded positions remain relatively flat as we come out of the pandemic. There are a couple highlights that I'd like to to point out. One, we added some capacity and public outreach to serve the growing information and navigation needs for families and youth. And we're also completed a transfer of our social worker who had been with homelessness and supportive housing to work directly now for the library. For our budget priorities, here you see the familiar public library strategy priorities in this ring graphic. We do look forward to updating these through our upcoming strategic planning effort due to kick off fairly soon. I'm happy to report that we're successful in having our budget proposals adopted this cycle. In line with these priorities, we'll be making investments that seek to advance racial equity and enhance digital access, as well as a number of capital and facilities related proposals, and also proposals to right size and true up our operations budget in the ongoing lines that carry from year to year, so they align with our current estimated costs and adjustments for inflation. So we'll talk about the capital facilities investments that we're making. Our major capital branch renovation program, also known as Library Improvements for Tomorrow, or LIFT, represents the way the library participates most directly in the local economic stimulus. For the upcoming fiscal year 23, we invested about $5.7 million collectively. That's $3 million going to Mission, $1.7 million to Chinatown, and $1 million to Ocean View. In fiscal year 24, we're investing an additional $10 million. That's for Chinatown, which had a cost escalation. We're anticipating around $3 million and another $7 million for Ocean View. In addition to city funds, we have applied for state grants for Chinatown and Mission projects as part of the Building Forward Infrastructure Grant Program. The Building Forward Infrastructure Grant Program was part of the California Budget Act of fiscal years 21 and 22. The overall program contains $439 million of one-time funds to create an equity-focused matching infrastructure grant program to support local library maintenance, capital projects, broadband and technology upgrades, and purchasing of devices. So we're looking for that to supplement some of the city funds. And just really quick, brief updates. The bids for the Mission projects, we're anticipating to be due later this month. Chinatown renovation project is currently in schematic design. We're working with our partners at Public Works, and we anticipate bids fall next year. And Ocean View Branch Library is still in the planning phase. We anticipate the San Francisco County Transportation Authority will begin, they have a traffic study coming in November that we're also keeping an eye on, not directly affecting our project. So the adopted budget will allow us to complete our opening to pre-pandemic levels. So I'll just give you some quick highlights, since I know it's a lot of material you've already seen before. We're on track to open all 28 locations this year to 7-day service, and we're about 95% pre-COVID hours of operation. 24 of those 28 locations are already at 7-day service. To get all the way there, we're focusing really on two main strategies. One is to hire our vacant positions, which I know the commission got a presentation on, I think it was last month. And the other is to continue to find solutions to allow for renovations to minimize any service disruptions, like the staff was able to do when they signed the lease agreement for the temporary Mission Branch Library, which really minimized any kind of closing impact on the public. So just for a quick recap, the facility line item here, does get quite a bit of investment this year. That's due to those fairly large capital projects that are proceeding, and that's all within this 2-year window. Because of the nature of the project, some of their costs get built in a little sooner than other areas. In the next budget development cycle, we'll be looking at how to invest FY24, but $24. So 24 becomes part of the next cycle. So we have a chance to reassess those. And we'll be building on our FY25 budget. So expect the fiscal year 24 investment picture to continue to evolve as we look towards November. Slide 10, as you know, each year as part of the budget process, we take before the Board of Supervisors a resolution to accept and expend the annual grant from the Friends of the Public Library. Just like to reiterate, the library is extremely fortunate to have such robust and annual support from the community. We enjoy a model of partnership with the Friends annual grant, allowing us to enhance the level of service we're able to provide. The grant award for fiscal year 23 amounts to $1,002,647, which is a significant increase from the last cycle. which was around 860,000. This grant continues to be structured with a mix of unrestricted support for specific service lines and programs and donor designated accounts and endowed funds. Some just real brief highlights for the upcoming fiscal year include $100,000 in funding for the Library Signature Summer Stride Program, which you guys got to hear about just a minute ago, which also includes hundreds of STEM activities for youth while they're out of school during the summertime. $30,000 for our annual One City, One Book SF Reads program. This year's title, This is Ear Hustle, is about award-winning podcast by the same name. And lastly, $91,000 for the Wiley Innovation Fund to support implementation for the library's racial equity plan. So I just want to some quick highlights on those. And that's the update for now.
Thanks, Mike. And I just want to echo Mike's appreciation for the Friends and Foundation of the San Francisco Public Library. This was a significant year. We exceeded $1 million for the first time in ever, possibly. Ever since I've been here anyway, and that's 8.5 years. So thank you, Friends, for all your support. Next up, we have our Director of Communications, Kate Patterson, and she's going to be introducing our next presentation and presenter, Work It and Tech Time.
Good evening, Commissioners. Great to see all of you. It's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker. But before I do, I just wanted to take a moment to rewind the clock and remind you how this all began. As some of you might recall, during the pandemic, the library responded to the city's economic turmoil and high unemployment rate by doubling down on virtual programs designed to help people with job searches, small businesses, personal finance, and digital literacy. These programs include Tech Time, Work It, Project Read, Career Online High School, and the resources available at the Small Business Center here at the main library. These programs grew in popularity by triple digits during COVID, and we recognized that we had an opportunity to reach new people and bring them into the library fold. Some of you might recall that back in February, I presented a campaign that bundled all of those programs together under the tagline, "We're here to get you there." The idea being that no matter where you are in your journey, San Francisco Public Library could help you get to your destination. We created and managed by the library public affairs team. This was phase one of the campaign and included flyers, postcards, muni bus ads, and a mailer that was sent to individuals receiving government service. And we did that in partnership with the Human Services Agency. What we're going to see today is phase two. Which was a digital campaign created by 46 Mile, which is a full-service integrated marketing and advertising agency that's part of Hearst Media. The project was funded by Friends of the San Francisco Public Library, so I want to thank them for their support. Not only did this project enable us to expand the library's reach, but it also afforded us the opportunity to explore what an extensive digital advertising campaign looks like for the library. This is the most comprehensive and sophisticated campaign we have ever undertaken, and it represents a massive learning opportunity for the library public affairs team. Once again, I am super grateful to the Friends for supporting this project. We are super grateful. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Michelle Jester, Strategic Performance Manager at 46 Mile. And she's joined here today with her colleague Jane Dean, who's the Strategic Accounts Manager at Hearst. And Michelle's going to walk you through the features and the results of the phase two of the campaign. But before I turn over the microphone to her, I just want to thank both Jane and Michelle for their incredible customer service. They went above and beyond throughout this process. In Jane's case, she even started one of our commercials because we couldn't find a leading female role. And it was just a privilege to have them as patient teachers as we iterated this campaign. So thank you both. And now without further ado, Michelle Jester.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you very much for the opportunity to let you know what's been going on. And we were very honored to be asked to partner with the Friends and the library to make this happen. To Commissioner Mall's point, as we started this discussion, we all sat around the room and we said, who knew? The library is so much more, and we all kind of incorporated a tagline that the library is more than just books. And the whole purpose of this was to get the word out, to raise the awareness and let people know what was going on, specifically around Work It and Tech Time. So what I'm going to be sharing with you, let's make sure I got the clicker right. Okay, thank you. Okay, so things going to be going over, just the key metrics that we were looking for, share these insights with you. How did we measure success? How did we reach the right people? Where were the ads seen and who saw them? Just an all-channel summary, because we used many proven tactics to reach these people, because the whole point is we wanted to be where they are, not where we think they're going to be. And what we used programmatic display. So I notice a number of you have your phones. How many of you get served ads on that phone? Most of you, I'm sure. That's programmatic display. Of course, video. And that is not just playing on YouTube, but if you watch or stream TV, then you get video and ads on there. Streaming audio, we created ads, audio ads. And then, of course, social, Facebook and Instagram, because again, we want to be where they are. So the way that we define success was, number one, did we get the word out? How many times was it available to be seen? The conversions, did they take an action? What happened? Click-through rate, did they see the ad? Did they click it, go to the website and to the sites that we wanted them to go to around Work It and Tech Time? And then view through, and what that means, you see your ad, you don't do anything, you walk away, you close it, but you come back later to the website of your own volition. And that is, think about it, 30 days down the road, somebody still comes back because the ad resonated to them. So our objectives, we were following the consumer journey, the awareness, and we did that through the impressions, them seeing it, their interest. Were they clicking? Were they viewing? What were they doing? Just prospecting, going out there and finding potential new customers. And we looked at if they were looking at new calendar events. The nurturing, they went to the website. They may or may not have done something, but we served ads to them again so they could be reminded and go back. And then the conversions, the registers. Did they get calls? Did they go for directions? Did they email? What did they do? And to me, this is the most exciting slide. You can see we reached over 130,000 people. That's the numbers in violet. But the most exciting part to me is the blue numbers. Those are brand new eyes that had never been to the library's website before. So you weren't reaching 2 people, you were reaching over 120,000 new people that had never been to your website before. To me, that's very exciting. And then in the white, the numbers you can see, these are people that registered for either the Work It or the Tech Time because they saw the ads. So 15,000 in May, 37,000 in June, and 38,000 in July. This is just a graphic of, and this is coming from library data, so it is not complete at this point in time, but you can just kind of see the trends of registration that were happening through Work It and Tech Time. How did we reach them? We looked for specific audiences. We looked for people, their interests, what they were searching for. And then again, people that were coming to the website, we went back and we were retargeting them. And the audience that we were targeting, we felt that we were looking for people that were underutilizing the library services and that we felt that were being underserved. So the areas in blue are the specific zip codes in the city that we targeted. We were looking more for African American and Hispanic audiences, that because the utilization rate is lower for those audiences. Certainly.
The other directive we gave 46 Mile is that because this was an economic recovery campaign, that we wanted to focus on these sectors of the city because they track with those sectors that were disproportionately affected by COVID. And so we were really looking to raise the tides in those areas of the city. So that was the main directive we gave in terms of the geography focus for the campaign.
Thank you, Kate. What this shows you just through all the tactics that were used, we served over 13 million impressions. Those were available to see. 314,000 times people actually clicked on the ads, and then 113,000 actions were taken because of the ads, which is a very good rate. Now I'm going to just go into a little bit of detail around the various channels. You can see that the display was the largest action that we had with 78%. We actually did some ads in the local San Francisco Chronicle, San Francisco Gate, newspapers, e-newspapers. We did streaming audio, social media, and then the YouTube, OTT, CTV video. The next slide just gives you a sense of, is representatives of some of the sites where these ads could be seen. Again, San Francisco Gate, Chronicle, Yahoo, USA Today, radio, Spotify, Facebook, Instagram. And this is just a representation. There's hundreds of sites where they can be seen. So the display ads, this is just an ad that showed up on someone's computer to give you an idea of what it looked like when they were being served the ad and they could see it. This is just a visual representation of, as we're going through, again, the consumer journey for display. And I know the visual could look a little bit small, but what you really should pay attention to is the numbers on the right. We reached 350,000 people, 104,000 people took some action, and we got 22,000 conversions out of that. So the numbers will look a little bit bigger than that little funnel does. Just in percentages, our conversion rate was 0.2%, which is in a range of expectation. We got a 0.9% click-through rate, which is very healthy, which means the ads were resonating and people were taking some action on it. The nice thing about it, it was costing 60 cents to get that person to come in and take advantage of what you have to offer. The baseline, it was hard. There isn't a baseline for library activity, so we had to go a little bit outside that venue to get that. So the amazing number here is 100% of our population saw the ad. Over 8 million unique devices were served, and a person saw that ad on average over that period of time 18 times. And then you can kind of see just the graph of how the conversions happened over that period of time. We ran this from March through July, and you can see the spiking as things were happening. So the purple is the registers and the light blue is the calendar views. So we anticipate by looking at that calendar views, they are also going to be turning into reservations or registrations. And then this is just a breakdown, so you can see how people reacted to the various campaigns. During the 4-month period, Tech Week came up, so we did a special ad run just for Tech Week as well, and it really did get a nice spike in activity. But you can see a very healthy registration rate of over 60% for all of them. and the calendar views. So they're also just planning. I call that, I think of that as future planning. Plus almost 2% contact for all of the different activities as well. This kind of gives you an idea of what the ads look like. And the takeaway from this is people like to see themselves in an ad. We started with more of a crowd shot, and it wasn't getting as much response as we were hoping, so we really pared this down to have individuals in those ads, and it really turned the tide. And these were the top performing ads, by the way. And we do constant A/B testing. We don't just pick an ad and stay with it. We constantly are testing what's working, what's not. Because all of our choices change over time. Here's some information just specifically about the Tech Week, and we literally just ran it for a week. But in that week, we got 871 registers. So people were excited about Tech Week. The beauty of this, and again, the takeaway is, I may see the ad this week, but people, it resonates and they come back later. And it's still generating registrations today. So the other channel, again, that we used is video. Of course, today, people like to see instead of read. Despite the fact that we do have paper books and ebooks, people like video. And this is a very popular and very effective channel. So what we have for you now, as Kate said, we have some videos that we created, and some of the players are in the room or online. So we're going to give you an example of what we created and what's out there resonating with people.
I wanted a new job, but I didn't know where to begin. To my surprise, the San Francisco Public Library had everything I needed. They provided me with resources on how to improve my resume and pointed me towards some great job opportunities. I even took a class on personal finance using their computers and internet access. And it was all free.
The San Francisco Public Library is more than just books. Visit them in downtown San Francisco or go online at sfpl.org.
The pandemic really took a toll on my business, but I got a lot of help at the Small Business Center in the San Francisco Public Library. There, I learned how to write a business plan, use email to market my business, and I created my own website. Best of all, it didn't cost me a penny. If you have a business that needs help, check out the Small Business Center at the San Francisco Public Library.
The San Francisco Public Library is more than just books. Visit them in downtown San Francisco or go online at sfpl.org.
My kids bought me a laptop, which was nice, except I don't know anything about computers. Then a friend told me about the free classes they have at the San Francisco Public Library. There I learned how to send email, search the internet, and create documents. The staff was very patient and made the classes fun. I even designed a digital birthday card for my grandson.
The San Francisco Public Library is more than just books. Visit them in downtown San Francisco or go online at sfpl.org.
And I just want to give my thanks to all the players that made those happen. And especially the library staff as well, as you may recognize a few of those faces in there. So the next slide just again tells you how it was impacting people and how they felt about it. We reached over 109,000 people, 45,000 of them took some action, and over 4,000 of them were registering or looking at the calendar. So some really nice conversions from them. You can see the new job and small business. This is how they're either looking at it or doing the registrations. So very successful in getting to them. The other channel we used was audio. And for lack of, to be cognizant of time, we didn't bring the audio to play for you, but they are accessible to you and you can listen to them at any time. What we did see was we did some various voices, but for Work It, our African American male voice drove a 96.89 completion rate, and what that means is people stayed and listened to the entire ad. And then for our Tech Time, our African American female voice actually drove the highest completion rate at 96.54. And we had different voices. Again, we A/B test and try them. So very good completion rates. If you can get over 70, 75%, you're doing very well. So we're very pleased with that performance.
I needed help with my job skills. The librarian at the San Francisco Public Library.
Yeah, okay, no problem. Okay, and again, this just gives you a sense, a representative sense of the channels, the audio channels that it was playing on. And this just gives you a sense, it was served about 300,000 times, and about 150,000 of those actually completed and listened to them 100%. Spotify, a 98% completion rate. And as you can see, mobile is still the driver. Everybody's on their phone, everybody's listening. And then, of course, we did social, because again, we want to be where they are, and people are on social. And again, we reached 118,000 people, 15,000 of them clicked, and we got almost 8,000 conversions out of the social. Very exciting to see. So I don't know if you're adding all those numbers up into your head, but very successful. The other thing about the social is they were really engaged and taking action. A 0.48 conversion rate, double industry average, a good click-through rate at 0.94. With social, it's all about sharing. And if we can get, a 0.08, we're very happy with that. So you can see how they were resonating with the message, and that's what it's all about. And again, the cost per conversion for social, very, very low. Again, a very high registration rate, almost 60% for both Work It and Tech Time. These were the top performing ads. We all continued to laugh. Throughout the 4-month campaign, the ad on the left was the most popular overall. We really loved it. What was really interesting, Work It, predominantly female, after 8 o'clock at night. And for the Tech Time, again, females, but the interesting thing is older females, 65 plus after 6. So the job market and learning and improving their skills, people are looking for it. And just in summarization, this just gives you, if you weren't adding all those numbers in your head as we went through, here they are. We served over 14 million impressions. They could see over 315,000 times people interacted with the ad with an average cost of 53 cents. In our minds, we feel that this was very successful. It impacted interactions, the registrations, the calendar events, and just coming to the website. But the other side of it was lots of new eyes, over 150,000 new eyes in the city of San Francisco came to your website, and there is so much there. So we were trying to answer that question of who knew? Well, now more people do know, and we're very excited about that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Michelle, and thank you, Kate. I hope you'll stick around. If I know my commission well, they're going to have some questions about this presentation.
I'm letting her in.
And our closer today is Anissa Malady. She is our adult engagement coordinator, and she's going to highlight some of the great and wonderful programming happening this upcoming month for Viva Latinx Heritage. Thank you.
All right. I don't have any data. Thank you, commissioners, Mr. Lambert, COO Singleton. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you tonight. And I am Anise Milady. I work on the adult programming side, outreach, and I'm part of community programs and partnerships, which is CPP, Michelle's department. And I work with 3 other colleagues who do youth services side, and I'm going to represent everybody tonight. So, yay. All right, so it's really exciting. We are, starting to get back in the groove, in-person people coming. And of course, we aspire to deliver the highest possible services to our community. And as a learning organization that sees continuous improvement, the library assesses and reassesses the program we provide. And so we've had plenty of time to do that. Through an evolution of programming, we have been intentional in reintroducing beloved presenters, authors, and performers during Summer Stride, which is the library's largest campaign. In exploring new ways for diverse programming to exist beyond the Heritage Month and happen throughout the year, we are launching a pilot model inspired by museum partnerships and library systems throughout the country. For our pilot year and initial series run, in addition to building a bevy of librarian-led programs and events, a passionate work group has been formed and has started to reach out to local community presenters as well as locations that are enthusiastic about hosting events in September and October and beyond. While we celebrate during the nationally recognized timeframe, our goal is to extend the celebration, learning, and resource sharing beyond those finite times and meet the intersectional needs for year-round offerings. Consider a round in music where each singer or instrumentalist carries the same melody but begins and ends at a different point, like Row, Row, Row Your Boat. Using this example, we'll start programming with Viva within the Heritage Month and also throughout the year. And then we'll turn to our next program series, which will be First Person in November, followed by More Than a Month in January, February. And then Weaving Stories, which is in May. And then we'll cycle this all year round. And as our programming builds, it will build into a diverse array of programming reflective of the communities we serve. And of course, we could not do any of this without our support from the Friends of the San Francisco Public Library. So we thank them so much for doing all the work that they do. All right, so yes, it's Viva time. And I'm so excited. We in our department, we get to choose a featured artist. And this is something that's, I think, somewhat new, but we get to pick the artist. We all vote on the artist. We ask the entire staff to submit nominations for the artist. And then we narrow it all down and we pick an artist. So we have chosen mission artist Fernando Martí, and we're celebrating his work. He's a printmaker, community activist, writer, and poet based in the Mission. And he will be doing a virtual talk and discussing his work and his artistic journey. And his work will be, you'll see it on our website, you'll see it on our landing page, you'll see posters, it will be hitting the streets very soon. And he does work with SF Print Collective, the Center for Political Education, PODER, and the SF Community Land Trust. So we're excited about that. Again, we're starting those in-person programs, and crafting for adults is finally back. I know our community is going to be super happy about this. And we're bringing in Calixto Robles, who is also an amazing mission-based artist. He does screen printing. He's going to do a screen printing and collage workshop at 4 locations across September and October. He's a printer, painter, and sculptor from Oaxaca, Mexico. He's inspired by myths, symbols, colors, and ancient traditions of Mesoamerica. He mixes silkscreen techniques, which enhance texture and brilliant color, using drawn and found images. His paintings explore magical realms, while ceramics allow him to reconnect with earthly materials. We are excited to have Robles bring his creative arts back to adults in person. All right, and so I was really excited to see Shelley's slide too about On the Same Page. On the Same Page is our bi-monthly read. I am chair our Readers Advisory Committee, which selects all of these books. And yay, they too have finally gotten their groove back, coming back and meeting at a regular monthly schedule. So we get to check together and choose these books. 4 of those were on Shelley's slide as the top circulating books. So yay to my Readers Advisory team. And so for September, we've selected Roberto Lovato's Unforgetting, a memoir of family migration, gangs, and revolution in the Americas. This is an urgent, no-holds-barred tale of gang life, guerrilla warfare, intergenerational trauma, and interconnected violence between the United States and El Salvador. This memoir excavates family history and reveals the intimate stories beneath headlines about gang violence and mass Central American migration, one of the most important yet least understood humanitarian crises of our time, and one in which the perspective of Central Americans in the United States has been silenced and forgotten. Lovato is a journalist, activist, and author, and he will be in combo with award-winning best-selling author and columnist for the San Francisco Chronicle, Vanessa Hua, on Saturday, October 22nd. And as Shelley mentioned, it's tying the author into these books that we're trying to get everyone in San Francisco to read has just been a great thing. And we also offer a book club. So generally it's the book club first, and then we have the author. So the book club will be on October 18th. All right, and Ingrid Rojas Contreras has come out with a new book. We're all excited about that. And she was just here with a panel of 2 other authors, Vanessa Hua again, and
Kirsten Chin.
Thank you, Kirsten Chin. And so, but she's going to be at our partner, Medicine for Nightmares bookstore and gallery, which has become a valuable partner, not just for the main library, but for Excelsior and for the Mission. And their space is gorgeous. They're on the 24th Street corridor. They're now doing things like book clubs with us. And there's going to be another program coming up that I'll tell you about that we're doing there. So this book, Ingrid will be, this will be an all in Spanish event. And Ingrid Rojas Contreras was born and raised in Bogota, Colombia. Her first novel, Fruit of the Drunken Tree, which was an On the Same Page selection as well, was the silver medal winner and first fiction from the California Book Awards and New York Times Editor Choice. Her essays and short stories have appeared in New York Times Magazine, BuzzFeed, Nylon, Guernica, and many more. She's received numerous awards and fellowships, and she's just an amazing speaker. The Man Who Could Move Clouds is a memoir about her grandfather, a curandero from Colombia who is said to have the power to move clouds. And it's going to be available very soon in Spanish. This is kind of going to be its book launch for the Spanish edition, but you can get it now at your library in English. All right, and so some of our libraries have selected some great books to choose for their book clubs, including Gabriel Garcia Marquez, Isabella Allende, San Francisco mystery writer, and Michael Nava. He's always doing really wonderful things with us. And you can't go wrong with Mango, Mambo, and Murder by Raquel Reyes, who's also been with us before. And back to our Readers Advisory Committee, they just do a lot of work. So it's my favorite committee ever to work on. So we create anywhere between 4 and 7 lists of book recommendations for both adult and youth. So these book recommendations, they get published on our At the Library newsletter. They also get put on social media. We also often tag the authors and then it gets picked up by the social media. So it's really fun to actually put it out there once we've got it together. Let's see. Other programs happening for adults. We'll have a metal embossing program at Ocean View, classic Latinx heritage music by Josh Diacharchiro, and the one and only Richie Unterberger is going to present vintage Latinx rock and roll. He always brings a crowd. And then I'm really excited about a Work It program. The small business librarian, Kirsty, will be presenting a business startup, and this will also be in Spanish. And then we're also going to celebrate Dia de los Muertos. And one thing that's not featured on the slide is that at the Grove Street entrance at the main library, there will be an exhibit and altar celebrating Dia de los Muertos. And there will be ofrendas featuring images of our dearly departed, marigolds, the flower of the dead, food, drink, paper picado, and sugar skulls. All items are meant to make the ofrenda an inviting place for the souls of our loved ones to visit. The Grove Street will be designated to reflect persons who are important to us as a library, but also as individuals. The altar will include portraits of deceased authors selected by our third floor staff and illustrations by our fabulous Michelle McNeil, our graphic artist, and images of deceased loved ones submitted by the main library staff. So check that out. It runs from September 24th through, I want to say December 1st, but I lost that date. And then we'll also have a marigold workshop at our temporary Mission Branch location and a mini altar craft at, again, the Mission Branch. And I want to repeat, these are for adults. You know, we do have a lot of family crafts, but adults really love to craft, really. And then here at the main, we are going to have a sugar skull craft, and we aren't typically known for having crafts and creative arts at the main, so I'm excited for this one to come. And then I'm super excited. This is our third year running at Bernal Heights Library to build a community altar and a history lesson from Calixto Robles again, who does an amazing job. He did it with us virtually the first year and then went to Bernal. Last year, the Familia Pena Govea just showed up on random. So now we've just invited them all back together to do it. And this has the wrong date. So come on October 30th, not on October 29th. And it's going to be fun. It's going to be such a great gathering. It's so beautiful. And bring your own offering and photo or offering to put on the altar. All right, here we go into youth. So throughout September and October, visit one of our locations to experience the beautiful tradition and dance form with roots in pre-Columbian culture. Danza Azteca Chatali Cholotl is dedicated to preserving the rich culture and ancestral customs that incorporate dance, movement, and spirituality and philosophy of Mexico's Aztec Mexica tradition. Again, at Medicine for Nightmares, where it says Mission's temporary branch, sorry, apologies. This is actually going to be held at Medicine for Nightmare bookstore on the 24th Street corridor. It's a history and tradition of Afro-Peruvian Cajon in partnership with Tradición Peruana Cultural Center, a celebration of Afro-Peruvian music and dance presented by Hernan Yabochichia Dance Performance Company, led by Juan Di Dio Soto. Soto is a Peruvian dancer, musician, and founder of Tradición Peruana Cultural Center. He has taught and performed Cajon and African Peruvian percussion since he came to the United States in 1991 from Lima, Peru. And we are so excited to have him. He's been with us before. So lots of wonderful repeat people coming back. And then lots of crafts coming up, recycled maracas, paper flowers, piñatas, all of that wonderful stuff. And then you can visit the main Children's Center for a Pan Dulce party where participants will enjoy Pan Dulce, a sweet bread of Mexican heritage that is also shared across other Latin American countries. Learn about the different types of breads and their unique names. Coffee for grown-ups and milk for little ones will be provided. You can also learn about Loteria and try your luck at winning prizes. There's also many fantastic titles to engage. You can see some of the reading list there for youth and teens. On October 1st, oh, this is exciting. The Lucky Diaz Band will perform at Excelsior Branch and at the New Farm. The New Farm, if you don't know where that is, it's out in Bayview. It's associated with the Bay Area Native Plant Company group. Great place. We did an outreach there over summer. Such amazing activity. So check them out. And they are going to be award-winning. Lucky Band brings us a picture story based on their musical hit, Paletero Man, with a read aloud concert and book giveaway. That's exciting. The new farm is super fun. All right, and then coming in March and April, starting our year-round programming. Finally, as an example, extending programming throughout the year, SF Youth Theater will share their touring production of Dina Diaz's adaptation of local author Alma Florada and Gabriel Zubizarreta's novel, Dancing Home. Dancing Home tells the story of two fifth-grade cousins, Margie and Lupe, and their struggles and shared bright points of dancing, family, and identity. All right, thank you very much. That's Viva, and I thank you.
Thank you so much, Anissa. Anissa's passion for programming and her leadership are a huge reason why our foot traffic is coming back. And we'll have some data next month, but we did recently have our best month of June. Our foot traffic is increasing, and so much goodness in this presentation. Looking forward to Lucky Diaz. If you haven't checked out Lucky Diaz before, highly recommend. It's a great musical group. And that concludes the City Librarian's Report.
Thank you very much, City Librarian Michael Lambert, and the incredible presentations, which I know there will be discussion and some questions. But we will first turn to public comment before we have our discussion. We'll begin with public comment here in Corrett Auditorium and then move to people observing and listening through WebEx. So public comment is now open here in Corrett Auditorium.
Hi, good evening. Marie Sapella, Executive Director of Friends of the San Francisco Public Library. It's nice to have my mask off. Whew. Okay. Yeah. Oh, thanks. We are very excited. Obviously, we worked with Kate, and you might be wondering why on earth is Friends doing this? And I did want to give a little bit of context to the investment that we made and that we brought to the library, because it's not cheap. Digital marketing is not cheap, and we all know that. And I think that was part of the point, is that across the country, I think libraries are really struggle with how to find the non-user, and particularly want to find the most high need non-users who are not using the system and need more help. And so this was really, we did not expect, we didn't predict what would come of it. It wasn't as if we were like, okay, we want to get X, Y, Z. It merely, we wanted to bring another tool to the library. And we were willing to say, we hadn't really done this kind of high-end, costly, like tech-based, how do you bring big data in? How do you bring segmentation and the talents and of what the 46 Mile can offer in that industry, which most of us don't know and understand, and it is a lot of numbers. So that isn't to say that the ground game isn't important. It is, and it's never going to go away. I'm one of those people that thinks the flyer is still great tech, and it's the one-to-one conversation that you're going to have at the doorway in the community with the community partners that you need to really get to people who you're trying to reach. But we haven't been able to bring, and we live in this community. So that was the meaning for us behind wanting to bring forward this opportunity. It is something we're thinking about more. As we look forward to our role and really looking, Friends is always going to fund the programs. There's no question about that. We're thinking a lot more about, well, the programs are all there. What is it uniquely that we as community can bring? And it is this amplified microphone. So we'll be looking more and more at how we, as the community partner, can bring more resources. So this was learning. For me, this was learning, and I hope that that Kate, and thank you, Kate, for going for it. And so we see it as a gift of learning, exploration. What does it mean? What does it mean now? Will Spanish video on streaming on this channel work? Will Chinese language on radio work? And it's a very complicated field, but we were hoping, for us, it was a gift of stepping in the water, seeing what could happen. And so we're very grateful to have supported it. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie. Any further comments here in Correct?
Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California, 94117-0544. First of all, thank you to the numerous comments from numerous of the commissioners on the previous item. In fact, I appreciate all of the questions and comments that you had to discuss and give some discussion to the matter of books and how in their various formats they appear at the library and work at the library. I did want to mention that in the chart that I referenced, the funding for electronic materials has gone from a little more than 2 million to more than 10 million, which is about a 5 times increase in the budget. And for books, it has gone from a little below 8 million to a little above 10 million, which is about a 25% increase. So the increase percentage-wise is 20 times greater for electronic materials. That doesn't say bad or good. What that says is what you provide and what you offer, in many cases, will determine the performance. So if you have a lot more of one and less of the other, and as I said, there are many times when books seem at a disadvantage. One of the things you don't measure, except very occasionally maybe, is browsing time. People use the books in the library. That doesn't come on a statistic. And I think that you need to consider that in terms of the value and the usage of the books. Very often with electronic materials, you have to basically check it out to see what's going on. I think that with respect to the budget, there needs to be a serious effort at what you call equity, programs that you need to provide an 800 number for and publicity for to the public so that those who don't have easy access to computers can actually take part in your virtual programs. And there has to be more easily accessible electronic materials, such as on a browser where you don't need a device or have downloaded some software. I think that there needs to be with the budget a lot more attention to training of librarians, education and training of librarians and the public on basic availability of materials and facilities and how they work. I think you need to listen to the public better and should spend some money on that. I think you should look at how books get and how slowly or quickly they get to the library. That certainly can reduce if they're slow. And periodicals as well are, I think, poorly managed at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just want to remind that public comment is on this item, number 3, the City Librarian's Report. Do we have any further comment here in Koret Auditorium? If not, operations, if there are any commenters in the remote queue, please begin to put the commenters through.
Madam President, there are no commenters in the queue. I will pause briefly to allow additional commenters to join the queue. Madam President, there are no additional commenters in the queue.
Thank you, operations. Hearing there are no further requests for comment, public comment on item number 3 is now closed, and we will now move to commission discussion on the City Librarian's Report. We had 3 really outstanding presentations today, in addition to City Librarian Michael's comments. Thank you, Mike, for your first formal presentation. I also want to just tip my hat to Maureen, who served as the interim CFO during some really critical points. But Mike, we're delighted you're here. We really appreciated the update. I just want to remind us, we all approved and reviewed this budget in great detail over several meetings. So it's wonderful that you could come back to us and tell us the good news and not say, uh-oh, we have to do this cut and that cut. So that's fantastic. So thank you. And then also to Kate, with your leadership with the wonderful support of the Friends. I want to thank Michelle and Jane. Jane, you did a great job in the video, so thank you for that. It's wonderful, and thank you, Marie, for your comments, recognizing that this was a dip in the pool to kind of test the waters and understand what the possibilities are. And Anissa, as always, you present such wonderful programs. Although you made one comment about your favorite committee to work with, and I just want to say I really like working on the One City, One Book, and but we still really like what you do, even if you did not pick.
That's your second favorite.
But anyway, these three great presentations, so much information, and I just want to thank all of you, and especially the Friends. You just kept being, we were reminded of your incredible contributions and leadership, so thank you for that. So I open this up. Any comment, questions from the group here? Commissioner Bolander.
So I was going to comment about the budget. I know last time we talked about the inflation adjustment that was put in there, and I know that was in flux, and given inflation now is probably double or triple what we put in there, I was just wondering what number did they finally come up with, if there was any inflation adjustment for staff?
I'm happy to address that question. So the MOUs for staff did include, I think it was 5.25% COLA adjustment for year one. So that actually wouldn't be reflected in this table, but it's part of the overarching total budget. So you, let's see, this. Well, bottom line, yes, those are the numbers. And then subsequent years, so it's a 3-year MOU. I don't have the other years memorized, but that was part of the negotiations between the unions and the mayor's office and DHR, the Department of Human Resources, in recognition of the inflationary costs on staff. And so that was, I think in my recollection, that's the largest cost of living adjustment that I've seen in 1 year, and that went into effect in July.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other further comments or questions? I think we're just so delighted by all of this, and we really thank you again to our colleagues and to the entire staff to make all these things happen, and looking forward to the future and having a budget that is going to allow us to really serve the community in the ways that we need. And how fantastic that we now have new users at the library because of this campaign. And it's really exciting to know that we have new ways of reaching people in our community to participate. So thank you again. And we will now move on to item number 4 in the agenda. And that is a discussion and possible action to approve the minutes of the July 21st, 22 commission meeting. We will open public comment on this item before commission discussion. We will begin with comment here in Correct Auditorium for members of the public here. And then we will move to those participating through observation and listening on WebEx. Public comment is now open here in Correct Auditorium.
Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California 94117-0544. I do wish that the members of the library administration would stick around for public comment. One of the audit findings from the controller was that the library is not listening sufficiently to the staff and, well, to the staff. The minutes have consistently left out the identification that I have provided for myself as Executive Director of Library Users Association and the ways to get in touch. And I'd like to see those because I take the time to say those things because I think they're important. With respect to something that the chair said on a previous item, my purpose was to comment on budget priorities and how you measure and evaluate how your performance is and what you need to do in future. With respect to two particular items of public comment here, on agenda item 2, I said that recent events concerning Roe versus Wade and other things associated caused a potential deadly issue for everyone. And I said that the library has therefore a greater responsibility than ever to make sure that privacy is observed for the public. I said that you continue to tout social media at every stage in the library, at the library, for example, for no particular reason that's clear. And that I think is potentially drawing people into giving information that can then be used against them in a variety of ways that we have read about and seen. I also talked about the toxicity of social media in a variety of ways, including Frances Haugen, and basically asked you to stop touting the social media because of those reasons, including that there was a New York Times article that very day about a Twitter employee turning over information to the Saudis about one or more users. I said that the library claims on item 3 that it is working toward what the public really wants, but I've not seen any indication. I didn't say the library is working. I mentioned a lot of technical problems, copies degraded, no training for staff or patrons regarding the new computer and copying, and a variety of other things that I think should be included. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comment here in Correct Auditorium on this agenda item? We will now turn public comment through WebEx. Operations, if there are any commenters in the remote queue, please begin to put the commenters through.
Madam President, there are no commenters in the queue at this time. I will pause briefly to allow additional commenters to join the queue. Madam President, there are no additional commenters in the queue.
Thank you very much, Operations. Hearing no further requests for comment, public comment is now closed on item number 4, and we now move to commission discussion and action on this item to approve the minutes of the July 21st, 2022 commission meeting. Would someone like to make a motion? Commissioner Mall makes a motion. Anyone to second?
Second.
Commissioner Lopez has seconded the motion.
Commissioners, please say aye or no when I call your name. President Wolf?
Aye.
President Wong?
Aye.
Commissioner Bolander?
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. Thank you. And now we move on to item number 5, our final agenda item, which is adjournment. We will open public comment here in Correct Auditorium, and then we will go on to those listening and watching via WebEx. We begin public comment here in Correct Auditorium now.
Peter Warfield, Executive Director, Library Users Association, Library Users 2004@yahoo.com, and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California, 94117-0544. And for anybody who's watching on YouTube, if you've got the name Mike Smith or any other name on there, it's not exactly the right thing to put on. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I think that you are representing the folks in San Francisco. You have, all of you, particular skills, experience, knowledge, and a lot to bring to the commission and to your work as library commissioners. The library used to have, I think you should not adjourn until you insist on having an item in which you get to say what the future agenda items are that you would like to see, if any, on a future library agenda, as you used to do, and as many other bodies still do. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment here in Correct Auditorium? Seeing there's no additional public comment in Correct, we now turn to public comment through WebEx. Operations, if there are any commenters in the remote queue, please begin to put the commenters through.
Madam President, there are no commenters in the queue at this time.
Okay, seeing that there are no commenters in the queue, public comment is now closed. And we now move to commission discussion and action on item number 5, which is adjournment of the meeting. And as we approach this, I just want to thank all my fellow commissioners for their great contributions, the incredible preparation of the staff for their contributions today, and of course, the operations team for making this hybrid meeting possible. And thank you again to Margot. So do we have... Commissioner Mall has moved to adjourn the meeting. Do we have a second?
A second.
Vice President Huang has seconded the motion.
I'll take the roll call. Commissioners, please say aye or no when I call your name. President Wolf?
Aye.
Commissioner Lopez?
Aye.
Commissioner Bolander?
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously and the meeting is now adjourned.